Welcome, Terraplane Nation. Jefferson Terraplane. Hey, Mikey, what's going on, buddy?
Jefferson, how are you, sir?
Well, let me ask you something. I think you and I are both on parallel tracks with albums we're putting out. Tell me a little bit about yours.
Oh, really? I didn't know that you knew anything about our new album that is called Peach that is going to be out. Well, it's kind of out now, but it's going to be we're sort of doing a weird soft release with it. Whereas we're still trying to hit just getting the cogs working and everything. One of the past problems.
Cogs? You have cogs?
I know, yeah. Maybe. The last few records we've gotten has been like because I'm not a real record label, it's all vanity press stuff. But we want to be treated like big boys, and so we've gotten stuff to reviewers kind of late, and they go, "Well, this has been out 3 weeks. We can't review this." Mm-hmm. So we're sort of backdating the release by a couple of more weeks, even though it is available on Bandcamp, the Blusterfields.bandcamp.com. Our new album is called once again, it's called Peach.
Yeah.
And my wife
reminds me of an episode of Homicide I saw recently. This guy was licking a peach, and it was kind of erotic, actually.
Yeah, well, as you can tell by this cover, it's as Maud Lebowski said in The Big Lebowski, it's quite vaginal. But to not be total creeps, my wife did paint this. So, and then on the back, we're reaching out to our prog roots for getting that dark green to light green fade to make it look like Close to the Edge.
Yeah,
it doesn't sound anything like Close to the Edge. So it's our fourth album. It's called Peach, and we're super proud of it.
Well, what formats are they available? Will they be available?
Well, we did vinyl on the last record, and we vinyl is kind of a wing and a prayer. As much as I love it, it's a hard sell, especially when you've got like a couple of hundred copies of it. And then it sells for a little bit right when you first get it, and then you're stuck with a bunch of copies. And so we're not doing vinyl. So CD and streaming, and that's it. And I think it's very possible that we may do a thing where we have you buy a T-shirt and you get the record. So
I love that idea, Mike. I swear to God, I think I might steal that.
Yeah, it's I don't know if you and I talked about this before, but Shalini put out, I think it was the first album under Shalini's name where she put out this T-shirt, and she found some company that the T-shirt was somehow vacuum sealed underneath a CD and then shrink wrapped. So it was like this oversized hockey puck.
That's right.
And you take the shrink wrap off, and you get the CD, and then you get a slip of paper that had the info on it, and then a T-shirt just fell out. And the T-shirt was, all the oxygen had been sucked out of it, so it was, it was pretty wrinkled. But you just throw it in the wash, and it was fine.
And the oxygen has been sucked out of it, sort of like when you walk into a room.
Exactly, just suck the oxygen out of it, or walk into a room full of beautiful women, and they just go, "Oh,
there you go." Well, I like it. Well, we've got the ball rolling. Our second album will be released June 6th, but we're going to have a digital single, 2 tracks from the album, one April 11th and one May 16th. Talking about Secret Monkey Weekend. If people
yeah, cool.
And let's see, we did get the all the things to Poorhouse. They're going to press ours.
Oh, nice.
And Ella from Secret Monkey Weekend just walked in. You want to poke your head in and say hello to Mike? She's wearing a Secret Monkey Weekend T-shirt.
Look at that. How are you?
So how are you?
Ella's on the beach here with me, and now she's gone. She's like a genie.
I was going to say that looks like the Neil Young thing. I was like, oh, it is the Neil Young thing.
Yeah, I'm just on the beach, just enjoying a North Carolina March afternoon. Everybody's standing still, and the wind is not blowing. It's pretty nice.
Yeah. So have you guys got a title for your record?
Yeah, it's called Lemon Drop Hammer.
Okay.
That could have been a wrestling name.
Or another band name. Yeah. Or another band. Or another band name.
Another band, or it could have been a Led Zeppelin album title,
Right. Yeah, they're all about
Lemon Drop Hammer of the Gods.
Right. Yeah, that's cool.
By the way, I think you know that I'm not actually drinking Bullet Rye. Can you see that?
Yeah,
it's just water in a whiskey bottle. I love it in a bottle. I think I've mentioned that to you before.
Well,
I'm crazy.
This is a pure slow gin fizz. It's 6 parts of gin and 1 part of slow gin. No, this is mineral water with cranberry juice in it.
Goodness.
Diet cranberry juice.
Oh, good. Well, yeah, Lemon Drop Hammer. You know the story behind the name? It's very organic. I was in the den, probably watching an Orioles game, and I hear this noise, this banging coming from the kitchen. I'm thinking, wow, Laura might need some help. She's got the tools out. And what I see is Laura, my wife, at the kitchen counter with a hammer banging on some lemon drops. Turns out they were all stuck together, and she wanted some, so they had melted somewhat. And I just thought, my God, are you the lemon drop hammer?
See, now my solution to that problem would just be to jam them all into my mouth.
Yeah, so, yeah. You could just like suck on it like a cigar,
right?
Slowly get to it. But yeah, there's all kinds of ways to enjoy a lemon drop. But we do have some artwork that's really nice by Brad Magner. And, speaking of album covers, I think the best album cover you ever did was the Matt Brown Out in the Desert cover.
An album cover that didn't exist. Well, yeah, because I was taking the mick on another rather... Oh, God, I'm trying to use the right word without getting in trouble. Rather self-important...
I'm almost afraid to show it now. I think everybody should see it, but it was.
It's pretty damn funny because when I saw the original album cover that I made, I
was there when you made it. I saw you take the picture.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was kind of a. That guy, I'm not going to mention his name, who is on the cover of the album and his band.
Yeah, let's just not go any further. Let's not. I will compare the albums in the overlay here and let people decide which one they like best. But the picture of Matt is golden. That's what makes it just the look on his face, because it's kind of like a newborn baby in a way, but with Matt's head. Yeah, and honestly, I've never heard that album. I've never heard the album from which I took the inspiration from, but I've had some minor run-ins with the guy, and I didn't hate him or anything. But it was just oh yeah, okay. You're a hobbyist, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, and anyway, I did like it in very early days of the internet. He had a whole one of the first people I ever knew that had their own website. And he had a website of himself and his weightlifting routine, and it was just a bunch of pictures of him in his boxer shorts. Oh my goodness. Flexing his muscles, and it was just like, dude, this is incredibly cringe. And so anyway. I mean, I'm sure his physique was fine, but it looked weird. Well, to me, what you did was like worthy of Conan O'Brien or Lynch. It was just that would be sort of a dream gig for a like sort of buzz bomb personality graphic designer like myself, where you're just like, do something funny, and you got 5 minutes, and I'm like, oh, shit, I can kind of see this as like you're Conan and I'm Andy Richter, Ed McMahon or something. I'm not quite as witty as Conan, but can you imagine getting paid for that? These days I can't imagine getting paid for anything. But one last question I wanted to ask you about the Secret Monkey Weekend record. I know you did it at Dave Tilley's studio. Did you do it analog, or did you do it Pro Tools, or how did? We did it on computer. I think he's got all that. 2-inch reel stuff. Because I had heard that he had 2-inch stuff, and I didn't know if you guys had done that. I honestly, at Hondo Creek, we don't have room to put that. Place is so engineered around being a Pro Tools room that putting in at Hondo Creek, putting in an analog machine would be, it would take a lot of physical room retooling and for not much. Probably wouldn't get much business for, but I was just wondering if what that was like, because every once in a while I get the
bug that I just want to go record like it's 1979 again. And,
Yeah.
and my ultimate dream record would be doing a whole record where it's 8-track, 1 inch, 30 IPS, and which limits your overdubs and no bouncing. You get
like the White Album.
Right, you get 3
that
tracks.
Was their first 8-track.
Yeah,
because they had to go to Trident to do some of that, because even though they had 8-track, they wouldn't let them use it at EMI or
Can you fathom that? I mean, the Beatles. No, you guys can't use it. But for me, it's like it's self-limiting, and that's a good thing. And you have to play the stuff well. You don't even have a room for a damn click track. You just have to and I've mentioned this to Todd, and Todd likes to do like 17 tracks of vocals, just layering after layering and everything. And he sort of broke out in a sweat. I was like, no, you're going to get 2 tracks for vocals, and that's it. And you and Chris and will have to stand around one mic and sing all the background vocal parts,
Right.
But I'm just doing an EP like that. I think it would just be a lot of fun. I don't know that it would be a particular selling point. I don't think from an aural standpoint.
Yeah.
Also mix it like that too, and then put it out on cassette. It's just like that. Just to me, just is sexy as heck.
Have you ever thought about putting it out on CB radio?
Yeah, put it on CB radio. Hey, good buddy. Yeah. Hey, I played a band.
We got a Nicholson and a Strata Cruiser here. All points bulletin.
Yeah. I will have to say this about CB. I played when I was 15. One of the ignominious gigs that I played most in that era. One of the best ones of that era was I played a CB coffee break at a gas station, and we played 9 45-minute sets.
Whoa. What was the C?
It was so they used to have these things back in the height of the CB era. And this was 1978, so this was kind of on the back end of it. But they're called CB coffee breaks, and what would happen was the word would go out on channel 19 that to all the truckers that at this gas station at this exit was having something called a CB coffee break. And basically what it was just kind of like a free coffee, chill out, here's some food, a barbecue, kind of a party-ish, no alcohol or anything. But it would be just like coffee and donuts and stuff like that. And it would go on, and then as the day went on, the food would change. And so truckers could stop and get a cup of coffee, and I think it was all so that they would buy their diesel from these places,
Right.
And so these gas stations, what they would do was they would have these things, and they would have a bunch of people, they have like crafts on display, and not only the truckers, but just people, because people had CBs in their car. My brother still does, and it would just be sort of this gathering of people on the side of the road, and they would all just hang out there for a while, and it was super American and super adorable. And so my band, we were called Equinox, and we played there. We played 9 45-minute sets from noon until 9 o'clock at night, and or almost, and we took 15-minute breaks, and we played Rush's 2112 opus. We played that 4 times that day. We played all of side 1 of Bluish Occult Secret Treaties like 3 times. We played just tons of other bad rock covers.
So did CB radio users hold their things up so other guys could hear the music?
I hope they didn't. I really hope they didn't.
Oh, I've got Led Zeppelin on CB. I think it was Greensboro.
No, it was very, very clear that we were not Led Zeppelin. Yeah, and especially since I was singing a lot of the material. It was not. No, it was bad.
That leads me to another 2 questions, okay?
Mm-hmm.
One is a Led Zeppelin question. One is, have you ever been recorded on any format singing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that single I did with the Village Pistols that came out in 1981, I wrote and sang that whole song. That's me. And I did a Blusterfields video interview earlier this morning with Eddie Huffman, and he asked me the same question. Yes. So yeah, I sing the A side of that. And I don't know if you know the story behind that, but I was
Maybe Terraplane Nation doesn't, but I know it. Go ahead.
Yeah, but so in 1981, or 1980 actually, my band that I'd been in for a while had split, and one of the main guy had gone back to college and left the other three of us just kind of at wits end. And between the three of us, we probably could have, should have kept on going, but we didn't. And we were kind of sitting around fallow for a while, not doing anything. And then this guy who worked at the record store with me, and he had come up with this idea to have a band and call it the Village Pistols, and which would have been, the Village People Sex Pistols conglomeration, and it just was a conceptual joke. And then somehow the opportunity for the Village Pistols to actually play and open for a local band came up, and we were like, well, we don't really have a band. And I had this song, and it was a minute and a half long, and I didn't even have lyrics for it at the time, anything. And I'd written it for that previous band I was in because I'd been listening to the Buzzcocks a lot. So it was a little bit like that, in that it had a lot of like stuff on the early Buzzcocks records before they got really a little bit more poppy. It's really jerky, kind of, it's not quite hardcore, but it's kind of closing in on that. And so I had it, and so we worked it up, and we put this band together. And Ed, the guy he was kind of more ostensibly sort of the front man, he's not a musician even to this day. He's just he messes around on stuff, but he never put in that kind of sort of work that we all do as musicians.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
When you're talking, it's your face that's being shown.
Mm-hmm.
But while you're talking, if you see me do like this,
yeah,
I realize we need to.
That's my wife's. I know that sign. My wife.
I will just silently do this or this, like we need to really
reel it in. Yeah. So basically, we put this band together and did this one gig, and then another gig, and then another gig, and then finally Ed wanted to put together a record label, and he wanted the Village Pistols to be the first single. So we sort of finished that song off and did a punk version of Strawberry Fields Forever on the other side, so that was it. And so what I told Eddie this afternoon was, I did lead singing in punk rock situations where pitch and rhythm were not super important. So but I just have a terrible voice.
I understand. You're the guitar guy. You're Jimmy Page to whomever.
Well, I wouldn't go that route, but I wouldn't go that far. But I sonic architect or whatever. That's kind of my thing. Kind of and the thing I told Eddie today, and is the difference between a like an artist and an artisan. An artist works from this creative space, and they're super ultra temperamental, and they're artists. Whereas an artisan is somebody who makes stuff that's really cool, that's beautiful to look at, or beautiful to listen to, or beautiful whatever. But they're more like craftsmen. It's just like, this is a job, and I'm gonna okay, put this here, put that there. Oh, doesn't that look nice? That's kind of the way I looked at the way I
was really worried you were going to use that handcrafted, that little series of phrases that had to
artisanal,
handcrafted, curated.
Curated.
Oh my God.
No, I hate that. I hate all that sort of silly pretension.
Especially
when you're making rock and roll.
There stands up on my arm when I hear those.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Rock and roll is art by itself. It's just Chuck Berry is art, right? It is. And so when you jump into that milieu and you're making that stuff, that's a given. Now let's polish that shit up and put it out the way we want, the way we need to. So
my other question was, in that same era, I have seen a picture of you either playing a Les Paul copy and a cowboy hat, shirt. How close were you to going country, Mike? Were you looks like you were in your urban cowboy phase there, Mike.
Yeah, well, that guitar is sitting right behind me. I sold that guitar, traded it, and I traded it to this guy who was the real guitar god of my high school. He was a couple years older than me, and he was really good, and he looked like Peter Frampton, but he came from a very, very hard scrabble family and didn't have any money. And he called me up one day and goes, Mike, I need a Les Paul. Can you get me a Les Paul? And my parents bought me. I had already had another Les Paul, a real one. And my parents bought me that one because the other one belonged to my cousin, and they bought me this one, which is an Aria copy. It's a bolt neck. It's absolutely nothing to get excited about. And so I traded it to him for this Moss Right double neck, which I should have kept because that would be worth millions of dollars, or several thousand. But yeah, exactly. So anyway, I never saw it, didn't see the guitar again. Always wanted one, and I picked one up that looked just like it from somebody. And then I did a little digging, and it turns out it is my exact guitar.
Wow. So what about the whole country motif, Mike?
But the country thing was just that day and that day only. That was Christmas Day. I got a cowboy hat for Christmas. I stuck it on my head. I was wearing a flannel shirt. The end.
Okay.
I think I did. Really I think I used to like Southern rock a little bit, but I got that out of my system.
Well, I thought next thing you know, you'll be wearing like a trucker cap and those oversized, collars, that were so fashionable, thrift store shirts,
Nah, I was always about the Slade and the Sweet and Alice Cooper and.
Okay. Well, that helps allay my fears. Thank you.
Yeah, I even did a version of that photograph where I photoshopped the cowboy hat out and just put my hair.
I was just going to ask you to maybe sing a verse or two of Country Sunshine. Or,
I don't even know what that is.
Well, let's see. I was raised on Country Sunshine. It was a Coke commercial, actually.
Oh. I think I vaguely remember that. Nah.
I sang that to Laura today because I always tease Laura that, she's from New Orleans and New Orleans is the South, and she's a country girl and she just hates that. She says, "God damn it, I'm from the city. I'm from New Orleans." I said, "Okay, fine," but I just I have a little fun poking fun at her. She's from further south than I am.
I'm totally not in any way comfortable with being Southern. Just not. And I realize I have an accent somewhat. And when I moved to DC, and I lived in DC for 5 years, people would say, "You've got such a Southern accent. It's just so cute." I would go, "Shut up." And then when I moved back down here, people were like, "What happened to your Southern accent?" I was like, "Shut up." I don't know, but
we are.
Yeah, I grew up just in that sort of ubiquitous American suburbia, just exactly like suburbia in upstate New York or Dubuque.
I don't know about you, Mike, but like 4 miles in any direction, you would find tobacco fields where I grew
up. I mean, it was around. Yeah, absolutely. I have this 10-mile rule about North Carolina. Anything 10 miles off of I-40 it's West Virginia. It's just So
not a bad thing. I mean, I worked in tobacco fields. That gave me my money to buy albums and put gas in the car. Priming tobacco as they call it. But it's interesting. I have nightmares about every job I've ever worked, but I never have nightmares about working in tobacco.
Wow, I had no idea about doing that. No, that kind of work frightens me. I always worked retail or I did a couple of light industrial jobs,
right.
And that was enough of that. And I'm notoriously lazy and an avid indoorsman. So doing anything that would require working outdoors or working with my hands or standing up for long periods of time is just completely antithetical to who I am. My work is based around headspace. It's
I just think on all of your social media, it should have in your description, avid indoorsman.
I have put that on there. It has come up. I came up with that was almost the name of the Blusterfields was the indoorsman, but it doesn't apply because Todd is like a big hiker and biker and bicyclist, and all that stuff. So he's by no means an indoorsman, and
Remember Tom Meltzer had a blog in the early days of whatever those blogs were that people, not the current day type blogs.
Right.
I think he called his Man of Constant Leisure.
That's good. I like that.
Just pretty good.
Yeah.
I've actually, borrowed that a time or two.
Yeah. I mean, I actually love to work when I'm working and, recording people or teaching or whatever. I absolutely love it. I love digging into it and being engaged, being not. And COVID was weird because there was just so much of my time was where I was just not engaged, and I felt like, well, I've got an excuse, but at the same time, I still don't like this idleness. I just didn't like it. But in some ways, it was kind of a good reset. In those ways.
Well, I've made a couple of Led Zeppelin and Jimmy Page references. Really,
Mhm.
one of the main things I wanted to ask you today is tell me about what it was like to see that Led Zeppelin film, the beginnings of Led Zeppelin. Now, it was IMAX. Does that mean it was a curved screen and you could wear 3D glasses, or is that a different type of
That's
experience?
a different thing. It wasn't a curved screen; it was just a massive screen, and the aspect ratio is a little bit more like television than it is. It
Okay.
is still wider than it is taller, but it's still more of a television aspect ratio.
Yeah, I
And
did
it's
see the Snoopy movie with Lila in 3D, and that was pretty wild.
I've seen some of those things too. I saw IMAX 3D. I saw that Sandra Bullock movie Gravity, and that was really cool. But this was it's like super high def, super massive screen, and you're in this the amphitheater seating. So I went to, I think it was the first show at South Point Cinema in Durham, and if it wasn't the first, it was the second. And I bought my ticket. It was in February, and I bought my ticket in December, and I center of the theater, center row, just maximum impact kind of thing. I took my earplugs with me because I figured it was going to be loud. It turned out not to be ridiculously loud. Yeah, it was a fantastic movie. I, there was, so I'm obviously like drooling mega fanboy and have been for almost 50 years with Led Zeppelin and saw them and all that stuff. And, um, it was a really thoughtfully put together thing. And I think the things that stand out the most about it is um, that the members themselves were involved. So therefore, the accuracy of what the guy was talking about was 99% there.
So was
And
it a documentary or was it a concert film?
it's a documentary. Yeah,
Oh,
and becoming Led Zeppelin, and it's a documentary about what they were doing before Led Zeppelin and then the first 2 years of the band up until basically it goes up until the beginning of 1970. So 68, 69. And I would say I know all the concert footage or live footage that they had was I've seen before. There was nothing that they put up on screen that I hadn't seen, but I hadn't seen it, in a movie theater where it was super HD, first generation, 40 feet high at, 90 decibels. That was not, that's, a lot of it. So there were like three or four main things that they showed, which was, they did in March of '69 when they had only been together about 6 months. They went to Denmark and played in this little TV studio live, and that's on this little on DVD, that thing that came out in 2003 or whatever. That's on there, and I had seen that even before that. It had been going around making the bootleg rounds since I don't know mid '90s or something or late '90s. So I'd seen it in kind of low quality, and then the one that's on DVD is pretty good, but it's still 480p and it looks good on TV, but
was it color or black and white?
it's black and white.
Okay,
Uh,
yeah, I've seen that. Didn't
yeah,
they do Dazed and Confused?
yeah.
Yeah,
They did Days Confused and Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You and Communication Breakdown and
right.
um,
Oh man. So, but it looks amazing in that theater in HD, right?
oh, it was astonishing. And then so they did that, and then they played a couple of songs on this French TV show a few months later called Tout Ensemble, and where they were playing in this circus arena, which was kind of cool. So the audience was kind of up like this, and they were kind of disinterested. And that's in color, and that's livid color, and Jimmy Page is wearing these bright red pants, and I think Robert Plant is too, or bright red top, and so they're all in red. It's really cool. And they did Days Confused and I think Communication Breakdown on that, and it's very live. And then
Was most of it the Dragon Telecaster?
yeah, Dragon Telecaster stuff. And then there's a few they did
Keep talking, Mike.
yeah, they did a few God, what were the other thing? The other one from that, they had some bootleg footage of them at the Atlanta Pop Festival and at the Bath Festival for Blues for 1969. So you could see him transition. Yes, awesome. You could see him transition from that to the Les Paul, which happened in about June or so of '69, and so all this footage was all cleaned up. But what was really astonishing was all this home movie footage that it had of all of them, where you could see them as kids walking around and doing things. And the ones that kind of almost made me cry were the ones of John Bonham. There was this one little clip. It was probably about 15 seconds long of John Bonham, and he couldn't have been more than like 11 or 12. Yeah. And he's playing drums, and there's some other, and he's pudgy, and there's this other kid that's playing with him. I'm not sure who it was, as a friend, and he's also this little pudgy English guy. And it's silent. You know, there's Led Zeppelin music dubbed over it, but you can see Bonham playing just this incredibly solid groove. You know, you can just see that it's like, oh, man, he had it even when he was a kid. And there was a picture of him also right after Jason was born, and so this would have been '67 because Jason was born in '66.
Right.
And Bonzo had a throw. He had a perm, like Mitch Mitchell, and it was and this zoot suit kind of thing. And he looked awesome, you know, and no mustache at all. And that was one thing visually that always bugged me about Led Zeppelin was John Bonham's mustache. I was like, the rest of these guys just have that sleek rock star look, and then there's just this mustached kind of chunky guy sitting behind the drums. But hey, he's John Bonham; he can do whatever he wants.
Well, so it was that I'm not a poser, Mike. I'm going to play one little bit here.
Yeah. Sadly, I can't hear it.
Yeah.
You've got some sort of gate on.
Got it. I was playing Good Times, Bad Times.
I could see that. Yeah, I could see what you're doing.
Whatever.
Yeah, so, you don't have that's not like the $2,000 one, is it?
No. It's the Mexican one.
Yeah. Is it heavy?
No.
I picked up one at a.
It's top loader. It's a top loader, and neck feels great. And you know, apparently they tried to get the specs pretty cool. You know, it feels.
I picked one up at a music store in what's that little town south of Charlotte in South Carolina, Fort Mill.
Fort Mill. That's where or whatever the PTL club did their stuff.
Right. And it was way heavier than I expected. And I was like, and I put it down. So I've often thought about taking one of my tellies and having my wife just paint that on there, saving a few bucks. But yeah, it was really good, and it went all the way up through the Albert Hall concert, which is widely available as it's on DVD and everything. So they tied that in, and then it just sort of ended. And I don't know that they're going to do 2 or 3 more parts to cover their whole career, because it gets kind of ugly there after a while. Yeah. And I don't know. Jimmy Page is always super protective and cagey about talking about the drug abuse and the hubris and the groupies and all that stuff. He doesn't like talking about that stuff.
And the fishing pier and all that stuff.
Yeah, and the red snapper incident and all that stuff. That stuff is all, and the 14-year-old girls and all that junk that was not cool. And so I don't foresee there being, but the one thing they got wrong was when they were showing that footage from Denmark in 1969, they flashed up that this was Gladzak's teen club in Copenhagen, and that's where they played their first gig, and then they played a second gig there, and they were sort of implying this is Led Zeppelin's first gig, and it wasn't. Right. And this was not at that club. This was at a television studio in Denmark.
Well, they were still called the New Yardbirds, right?
Not when that thing was filmed, no. But when they played the first gig in first gigs in Scandinavia in '68, yeah, they were the New Yardbirds. Yeah, when they came back from that, then they started playing clubs in Britain and played a few shows as the Yardbirds, and some as the New Yardbirds, and then some as the New Yardbirds, soon to be Led Zeppelin or something like that.
Right.
Or they had, or Led Zeppelin, formerly the Yardbirds. They were kind of. But by the time they got to America in December of 1968 for their first run of shows, they were totally Led Zeppelin. So,
hey, Mike, I thought it just occurred to me, you and I probably have a few of those Facebook friendships where they are celebrities or whatever. And I've actually
Sure.
had luck with getting them on podcast. I had like Dan Baird on the Secret
Hmm.
video show 5 years ago during the pandemic, and
Oh,
you
cool.
know, and stuff. But didn't BB Buell have something to do with Zeppelin, or at least that scene?
Yeah, yeah. I think she was in on that. Yeah.
He's one of my Facebook friends, kind of new.
Hmm. I have Laurie Maddox as one of my Facebook friends, who was that aforementioned 14-year-old groupie that Jimmy.
Oh, no, 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 no,
Yeah,
it's not.
yeah, yeah. Well, no, I wasn't gonna.
No, 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 I'm not implying that whom I just mentioned did anything. I just meant that
No,
people
no,
in
no.
the
But
States would tell us about,
Laurie talks about it all the time on her Facebook page. She has no bad feelings about it at all, and um, she, she's still only just a little bit older than me. She's
right.
probably 66 or something like that. But she, no, she's older than that. But she's on my Facebook thing, and for a while, I think Pamela DeBar was too, and
Yeah.
she was also a consort in those days. And then there were a couple others that were on there, but um,
It was a different era, Mike.
it totally was.
We have, we are saints, and we have done godly things as opposed to depraved things. And
I mean, I got into playing rock and roll. I'm going to be totally honest. I got into playing rock and roll because of Led Zeppelin but really because of girls tied into that. And I there was a girl that hung out at my swimming pool that I would just happen to mention that I had picked up a friend of mine's guitar and thought it was cool. We were just talking about guitars, and that's how I started guitar. This friend had a guitar, and I made some awful sounds on it, and I thought I'd like to see what I could do with it. And I sort of was just chatting with her about it, and she was this cute girl, blonde girl in a bikini, and she said if I could learn how to play Stairway to Heaven, she'd give me a kiss. And I was like, challenge accepted. So Dad, I want a guitar. I think your cousin has one. A year later, I go to the pool and I play Stairway to Heaven on my acoustic for her, and I'm going,
yeah,
and she
yeah.
goes, what? And she goes, I didn't say that. And I said, you did. And she goes,
It's
oh,
not
well,
like
I'm
that.
not going
Here
to.
we are, entertain us, and then just leave
Yeah,
you dry. Yeah.
exactly. So, but my guitar has ultimately, worked out to, help me get to where I am. With my wife was introduced to me by my very first guitar student,
Yeah.
and um, so it worked out.
Well,
So,
I have to say, I don't think it did me that much good. I honestly got into it to learn to write songs. I really wanted to, I had lyrics in my head, and I said, I want to put them to music. So, right away, I think Bob Dylan and Neil Young were my two songwriting, signposts that I wanted to follow. But then, of course, I was such a Beatle freak that
mhm.
I had to learn some Beatles. I had to learn the Stones. I think I actually learned more guitar from playing Stones albums, and I think the main album that I played over and over to learn guitar was "Get Your Ya-Ya's Out."
Yeah, it's all there.
Or as
And
long,
they're also, what's good about Get Your Yayas Out, they're all in standard tuning.
right,
A
right. He
lot of those
did.
old Stone songs are a quarter step flat or sharp or something, and it's really maddening when you're trying to, got to either retune your guitar or. I remember in the old days when turntables, you could have a little bit of leeway in terms of the RPMs, and so you could speed things up and slow them down just to match standard tuning. Um, but yeah, jumping Jack Flash is maddening. It's like in B flat plus. It's
Yeah.
played in B, but
There's so much cool stuff just in between, the audience and the stage patter. There's like,
Mhm.
ladies and gentlemen, the greatest band in the world, the Rolling Stones, and then paint it black, you devil, and
You pay it black, you do. I'll tell
Charlie's
you, you
United.
don't want my trousers to fall down, do you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
classic.
I love that when they finally put out the extended version of that record, with all the other songs from those
Right.
shows. And uh,
Yeah. Well, it
uh,
wasn't until I finally saw the Gimme Shelter movie that I realized they were doing Under My Thumb live, which was pretty.
mhm.
In fact, even though it's quite different than the recorded version, boy, it sounded great. I thought it
Yeah,
was really good. course, that was the song where all of the violence happened, I think.
Mm-hmm. And I also think that the version of Stray Cat Blues on that record is better than the one that's on Beggars Banquet. I think it's just got it's better tempo for it. Yeah, so
It's Mick Taylor's first extended workout, that whole record,
yeah, for sure. I do think that Stones in '72 was more of the peak, and sadly, there's no legit live album of that. There might be now in the world of digital release. Let's release everything. But
Well, didn't was it the '73 Brussels affair finally get released as
I think
well?
so. Yeah, I
Maybe
think so. Yeah,
I
and that's
had that
exactly
on
the one.
8-track before I even had it on cassette. I had it on 8-tracks and got it.
There's another boot from that same European track in '73, and I think it's called. I think it's Paris, but Keith Richards' amp is buzzing through the whole thing. It's just it's terrible 60 cycle hum that's just awful. And I always thought a good title of that be Keith Richards Has a Buzz.
Yeah.
But
what was the name of the bootleg?
Yeah, that's what would be a really good boot name. And then there's an Australian one also from '73 that's really good. That's I think next to Led Zeppelin, I think I have just about as many Stones bootlegs. And what's cool about Stones bootlegs, if you really get into collecting them, is the massive amount of studio outtakes.
Right.
There's 4 albums of outtakes of Some Girl stuff.
Right.
Just a lot of it's just Chuck Berry songs, that they're just goofing on. But it is, it's pretty. And there's some really great stuff on there. A lot of which they ended up gussing up and came out on Emotional Rescue. And
that's right. Well, what a comeback record that was too, because I think. I like Goat's Head Soup, and I like about half of Black and Blue. I like maybe 3/4 of, or four. Let's say I like 4/5 of Goat's Head Soup, and I only like about half of Black and Blue. So when they came back with Some Girls, there wasn't a dud on there.
No, and it had that sort of punk New York energy to it, and even though it was recorded in Paris, and I remember that whole summer, just that record I put on a cassette, and it just everywhere I went, my little Sony Walkman had Some Girls playing. I just wore that thing out. And
I remember them being Saturday Night Live that fall. I guess I don't know if it was the season premiere. It may have been '78, but I remember just last week. I don't know what I was looking for, but it was the rehearsal.
Yes,
at SNL.
Yeah, that's on YouTube. It's great.
They're actually probably better than they were live because Mick had lost his voice by the time they went live.
Yeah. And of course, they were in the Cheeseburger skit too.
That's right.
Which I thought was great.
That's right. Yeah, I need to find that episode because I think it's maybe Hulu or Peacock or something.
Yeah, they used to all be on Netflix. All the old Saturday Night Lives from the first 5 seasons were on Netflix years ago, and then they're I'm sure they're on Peacock now if you wanted to find them. One of the funny things about SNL, I'm sure it was for you because you and I graduated high school the same year. It was such a part of the culture, and if you were a high school kid, that was just kind of what we did in homeroom on Monday morning was talk about Saturday Night Live. We were just people would, all the dumb jocks be just going, "Well, I'm crazy God," and I remember everybody just coming in that day after, and it was one of the best episodes ever because. I will say this about SNL. When you look back at, people are always bitching about how bad SNL is now, and they're right. But it was, even in the glory days with the original cast, it was pretty spotty. Spotty. And, about 12:35, after the musical guests have played and they're on the back end of that half hour, everybody's stoned, everybody's tired. And stuff was just falling apart. But I remember that Monday morning after Kate Bush was on, and it was an Eric Idle episode.
I saw that. I remember seeing that.
Every sketch was just killer, including my favorite SNL sketch of all time called Cochise at Oxford, which was just absolutely the most nonsensical Monty Python thing you've ever seen. And you could tell nobody in the SNL cast knew what the hell was going on, but Eric Idle was just like perfect. Anyway, everybody's talking about how horrible Kate Bush was. Oh, that was just terrible. And they were mimicking her and imitating her. And I was going, I thought she was great.
I need to go back. I did watch that 50th anniversary show.
I have not, yeah.
Yeah, I need to see it again. I don't remember it knocking me out that much, but there are some archival things, like maybe I think it was almost like 3 different broadcasts to sort of celebrate the 50th anniversary. Like one was music, just the highlights of the music, and then there was the show itself. But I think I watched a movie which was a dramatization of.
I've heard about that too.
That's good. That's very good.
I need to check that out. I do know that the one thing I loved about those old SNLs was that their musical guests were never ever pandering to popular tastes.
That's right.
You didn't have it was 1975, so you didn't have Starland Vocal Band on there, right? Or you didn't have disco artists, or you didn't have whatever pop stuff was going on. They had some pretty fringe stuff. I mean, they had Sun Ra on there, for crying out loud, and they had the band Stuff with Steve Gadd and Eric Gale and Ornette Coleman and Neil Young, came out there and did this incredible acoustic set. And even stuff I didn't particularly care for, like Leon Redbone or Paul Simon or whatever, it was still just really good. And
Paul Simon was always good as part of the sketches.
Yeah, well, he was great. That one sketch, that's probably my second favorite sketch, is that one where you're standing outside of a movie theater and somebody comes up to him and goes, "Hey, you're Paul Simon." And he goes, "Yeah." He says, "I saw you at Cafe Wa in 1962. And it was he goes, "Were you sitting like 3 rows behind and you were sitting there, you were talking, are you still dating, her name was Heather, right? Are you still dating her?" Yeah. And he goes, No. I married this woman named Julie." He goes, "Julie, right. Yeah." And then the next person comes up and he goes, "Oh, yes. Yeah, I remember you from, we were at Monterey Pop together and you were backstage and you were handing out bottles of water to people, right? And your name is Tim and how's your parents doing?" And all this stuff. And it would just go into these things where everybody he'd ever met in his life or seen. And then the next to the last person was this person, because I was about 200 yards back from the stage when you played concert at Central Park. And, I was underneath that sycamore tree. And he goes, Right. I remember you. You were wearing kind of a red. Were you wearing no, you're wearing a Mets hat. You're wearing a Mets hat, but you're a Yankees fan, right? And then Art Garfunkel walks up and he goes, "Paul, hey, it's good to see you." Art Garfunkel. And he goes, I don't remember. Fill me in here.
Yeah.
We sang together, had a million records.
Seems like there was
not ringing a bell.
Simon was standing outside of 30 Rock, getting ready to go in at some point, and Chevy Chase is out there busking, because he had already
Chevy left the show. That's
right. And then they said, "What are you doing?" And then, of course, Chevy kind of mentions a few things, acting like he's got something going, but the implication is he doesn't, and he's really desperate. And, and then he said, "Well, there's an after party. Maybe you can hang out with us after the show."
Well, you remember when Lorne Michaels came on and offered the Beatles $3,000.
That's right. They could split it anywhere they want.
They famously turned down an offer to reform and play right around that time, to reform and play at the New Orleans Superdome for $1 million.
Yeah,
which was unheard of back then. And so as a joke, Lorne Michaels goes, "I'll give you $3,000." And then, of course, a couple of months later, George Harrison's on there and he's like, "So I want my $750.
Yeah.
He goes, "No, it doesn't work that way. All the Beatles, $3,000. Well,
that's right.
I still think I should get $750. And George is so droll and so good on camera.
His humor is just one of the best things about the Beatles. He's just always
just he's dry. I understand he was fairly prickly, but I don't know. Who knows? But he's George
Mike, I'm going to reel myself in. You see, the reeling in I think your wife does that, right? Well,
my wife does this. Yeah, just like, get to the point.
I'm using my laptop for the first time, and I'm almost out of battery, and otherwise. But yeah,
I did want to say one other thing very quickly about. I was in a fairly highly agitated state when I got to the Led Zeppelin movie, because I was going down the road and a high-speed police chase went past me and almost ran me off the road, and then I got cut off in traffic and stuck in the middle of an intersection. Then I got behind a school bus, but I have to say that I really do not enjoy going to movies and movie theaters anymore. And it used to be such a big part of my life as a kid and even as an adult. It was a really unpleasant experience at South Point. the movie was supposed to
People
start
talk during it, and were people interrupting and talking?
No, there were people, slopping their popcorn, their $20 things of popcorn, which that's my own OCD problem. That's a me problem. But no, it was 40 minutes, nearly 40 minutes of previews and commercials before the movie. And so the movie was supposed to start at 4, and it started at 4:40. And the place was a little grotty, and it was a little not clean, and like smelling of old popcorn. But that and I used to love watching previews, and all these movies looked like they were going to suck. And I know I'm outside of the target demographic these days, but I don't know who the target demographic of these movies is.
Well, think about it. I mean, how often do we even go to movies anymore? I stream so many things now that, gosh, it's kind of rare that I.
But I love the visceral experience of going to a movie. I really do. And even the last movie I went to see, this was the first movie I'd seen since COVID. And the last movie that Anna and I had gone to see was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and it was in a local movie, and it was great.
Well, there you go. Now, I have to say, I saw that one 3 times in the theater.
Yeah.
I saw it twice in our area, and when we were in Baltimore, I think our train was late, and we were going to miss the ball game. We hadn't bought tickets yet. I said, hey, let's just go see a movie. And I think that might have been the first time we saw it. So,
do y'all usually take the train
for that movie? Laura's mom even loved it, Her,
yeah.
At the time,
so when you go to Baltimore, do you take the train, or do you most of the time, or you drive? Or?
Most of the time we take the train. We do have a couple of places we like to stay up there when we drive, but and I don't mind the drive because we take Highway 301. We take the sort of rural route up there. We try to stay on 25 best we can.
I did Route 1 once to go to my daughter lives in Fort Belvoir, Virginia, and but not in after August, and so I need to get. I want to go to a Nats game.
Well, why don't you and I plan to go sometime? Because if we have a weekend where we're not playing gigs, let's go up there together and see a game.
That would be fantastic, and I can hang out with my grandkids, and you can go, where you can hang out.
I'll bring a sleeping bag.
Yeah. So yeah, I haven't been to a major league game since 1990. So yeah. And
you're going to love the Nat Stadium. Of course, Camden Yards is the gold standard, but my God, yeah, you'll love it. Well, I'm going to have to shut down the shop today, but
cool.
As always, it's nice having a chat with you, just like we used to talk on the phone, and actually by doing this, we're actually in touch more. So I might have to think of different podcasts from different friends that I'm in touch with. But you're my Terraplane buddy.
Cool, man. Sounds good. It's good to talk to you. And
good luck. Have some good shows.
Let's think of something else to talk about next time.
You know it.
Peace, bro.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.